The Galactic Council had 3 unbreakable rules about Vorkalian cubs. Maintain a minimum distance of 20 meters, wear full combat armor in their presence, and never, under any circumstances, make direct eye contact. Hana knew all 3 rules. She simply chose to ignore them. The observation deck of Station Kepler 9 hummed with nervous energy as delegates from 47 species gathered to witness the impossible. Through the reinforced transparisteel, they watched a human woman sitting cross-legged on the floor of the containment habitat, wearing nothing more threatening than flannel pajamas decorated with tiny earth cats. Surrounding her were 6 Vorkalian cubs, each the size of a terrestrial grizzly bear, with obsidian scales that could deflect plasma fire and claws that could shred starship hull plating. The smallest one, Rick, had his massive head resting in her lap while she absently scratched behind his auditory ridges. "This is madness," hissed Commander Velkoth, his 4 arms gesturing frantically inside his full combat exosuit. "Those creatures killed 3 of my best soldiers last month. We had to use sonic cannons just to sedate them." Ambassador Terrain, a crystalline being whose species had been observing protocols for millennia, chimed in agreement. "The Vorkalians are apex predators from a death world. Their young are born with the instinct to kill anything that shows fear or aggression. It's biological imperative." Dr. Sarah Chen, the human xenobiologist standing beside them, didn't look away from the scene below. "Maybe that's the problem. You've been treating them like weapons instead of children." 3 months earlier, the Vorkalian delegation had arrived at the station with an unprecedented request. Their species was dying, not from war or disease, but from something far more insidious. Their cubs, once raised in multi-generational family units, were now being born on sterile colony ships and military installations. Isolated from their ancestral nurturing grounds, the young Vorkalians were becoming uncontrollable, attacking anything that moved. Entire litters had to be euthanized. The Galactic Council had tried everything: behavioral modification, chemical suppressants, even genetic therapy. Nothing worked. The cubs' aggression only intensified. Then Hana had volunteered. She wasn't a soldier or a scientist. She was a civilian contractor, a kindergarten teacher from Seattle who'd signed up for a 5-year stint managing the station's educational facilities. When she'd heard about the Vorkalian crisis, she'd simply walked into the council chambers and said, "Let me try." They'd laughed, then argued, then out of desperation agreed. The first day, Hana had entered the habitat wearing those same ridiculous pajamas, carrying nothing but a worn blanket and a thermos of chamomile tea. The security team had been 30 seconds away from emergency extraction when something remarkable happened. Nothing. The cubs, who had been snarling and posturing aggressively, simply stopped. They watched her with those intelligent, amber eyes as she calmly spread out the blanket, sat down, and began reading aloud from a battered paperback. "The thing about predators," Hana had explained later, "is that they're not actually aggressive all the time. They're afraid. These cubs have been surrounded by warriors in armor, by beings who reek of fear and adrenaline. Every instinct they have tells them they're in danger, so they attack first. By the end of the first week, the cubs allowed her to sit among them. By the second, they were investigating her with cautious curiosity. By the third, little Rick had fallen asleep with his head on her shoulder. Now, watching through the observation window, Commander Velkoth witnessed something that would be discussed in xenopsychology classes for generations. Hana was teaching the cubs to play. She'd brought simple toys from Earth: rubber balls, lengths of rope, even cardboard boxes. The cubs, these supposedly uncontrollable killing machines, were learning to stalk and pounce without the intent to kill. They were learning restraint, patience, cooperation. "Look at Rick," Dr. Chen whispered, pointing. The smallest cub was gently mouthing Hana's hand, his sword-length fangs carefully positioned to avoid breaking her fragile human skin. "He's learning bite inhibition, something their mothers would have taught them naturally." Ambassador Terrain's crystalline structure pulsed with confusion. "But how?" "Our behavioral specialists spent months attempting to establish dominance hierarchies, to enforce submission through superior force." "That's your first mistake." Hana's voice crackled through the comm system. She must have heard them through the habitat's audio feed. "I'm not trying to dominate them. I'm mothering them." She looked up at the observation window, her expression gentle but firm. "Every species that raises live young understands this on some level. Cubs don't need warriors. They need caregivers. Someone who's calm, consistent, and completely unafraid. Not because I could fight them, I obviously couldn't, but because I don't see them as threats. I see them as babies who are scared and confused and desperately need someone to show them that the universe isn't always hostile. As if to prove her point, Rick made a sound, something between a purr and a chirp, and nuzzled closer. The other 5 cubs were arranged around her in a protective circle, but their body language had transformed from aggressive guarding to something else entirely. They looked content. The armor was your tell, Hana continued, now running her hands along the scales of a larger cub named Sarek. Every time you approached in full combat gear, you told them, "I'm here to fight." But Pajamas, she smiled. Pajamas say, "I'm here to sleep safely beside you." It's about vulnerability as communication. Over the following weeks, the miracle deepened. The cubs began responding to verbal commands, not through fear conditioning, but through genuine bonding. They learned to regulate their strength, to differentiate between play and combat, to seek comfort instead of delivering violence. The Vorkalian parents, when they finally arrived, approached the habitat with traditional solemnity, full ceremonial armor, weapons displayed. They stopped short when they saw their children peacefully arranged around a human in flannel pajamas. Some sleeping, others playing with earth toys. The eldest Vorkalian, a scarred warrior named Thraknor, removed his helmet. His amber eyes, so similar to his offspring's, glistened with emotion that transcended species. "You have returned our children to us," he rumbled, his translator struggling with the depth of feeling. "We thought them lost to the rage. But you saw them as we once did." Hana stood, carefully extracting herself from the pile of cubs. Rick protested sleepily but settled back down. She approached the Vorkalian parents with the same fearless calm she'd shown their young. "They were never lost," she said simply. "They just needed someone to tuck them in at night." And in that moment, the Galactic Council learned what humanity had always known: that sometimes the greatest strength isn't found in armor and weapons, but in the courage to be soft when the universe demands hardness, the bravery to offer comfort instead of combat, the wisdom to know that vulnerability, offered honestly, can transform even the fiercest predator into a sleeping child who trusts you enough to rest.